Sony EV-10 versus the Fuji X-S10. Let's do it.
Well, working 3 jobs, living out of a car. Mama never told me life would get this hard. Running around the world playing my guitar. Baby, you can love me, you can leave me, I'm a honky-tonk star.
I'm not gonna lie to you, when the Sony EV-10 was first announced, I was pretty excited about that camera. And the reason being was because that I wanted to, if possible, consolidate all of my lenses into one mount, and Sony makes that pretty easy for you. And then we got it kind of released into the world. I started watching videos about it and seeing some of the specs and some of the features of it, and I'm just not quite sure as good or better than the old Fuji X-S10 here. So today we're going to take a look at comparison between the two, I guess, at least from what I've seen online and my experiences with the X-S10. Now, the first thing you'd be saying to yourself was, well, the Sony is $300 less than the Fuji X-S10. So let's talk about what you're going to get with that extra $300 that you're going to be spending with the Fuji. The first thing you're going to get is a electronic viewfinder. And why I don't use this viewfinder just a whole lot, I find that when you're in really harsh conditions, bright sunlight, that EVF is pretty critical at that point. No matter what Sony does, I just can't seem to see it. Like the screen is just not bright enough when it's just really bright outside. So even with my more expensive A7S III, if I'm taking pictures or videos, I'm always checking, looking in the EVF to check to see if everything's right, if everything looks good. That's one thing you're going to miss in the the Sony. Kind of just call it the V. I'm just going to call it the Sony E10. Okay. So that's one of the things you're going to miss with the Sony E10 is the electronic viewfinder. One of the things that you're going to get in the Fuji X-S10 that you're not going to get in the Sony E10 is a pop-up flash. Now most cameras like this come with a little pop-up flash, but what makes this one so special is you can control the power of it, and that makes it a really handy tool for photography. One of the things you're going to get in the Fuji X-S10 that you're not going to get in the Sony E10 is in-body image stabilization, and that's just really important if you think about it. Now the Sony E10 does have active stabilization built into the camera, but when you use that function, it crops in 40%, and that's a huge crop for using active image stabilization. This camera here has in-body image stabilization that you can use with no crop. You can also have electronic image stabilization that crops in just a little bit. And then you also have boost mode, which is used to if you want to take a stationary video or something. And those three things are just, in my opinion, going to be way better on the Fuji X-S10. Now, some people would say the E10 is just a lot smaller, but I don't know that it can get much smaller than the. I mean, look at that; it's the size of my hand. That's how big the Fuji X-S10 is. Once the cameras start getting this small, it's really just a push. One of the things that the Fuji has over the E10 is the flip out screen. The thing about the Fuji X-S10 flip out screen is that you can actually touch and control some of the functions of the camera while you're in front of the camera. And the Sony, you're not going to be able to do that. So that makes it a lot more convenient if you're trying to control the camera in front of it like this. And with the Fuji X-S10, you're going to have access to all our film simulations, which is really clutch. Now, of course, with Sony, you're going to get a lot of different video picture profiles with it. You get S-Log2, S-Log3, HLG, and all the like. But if you're going to want a camera, if you're going to buy a camera like this, chances are you're not going to be color grading just a whole lot. And just to have the eternal picture profile and to pop it straight out of the camera into your video, no color grading in it, it's going to be pretty clutch for creators that don't like to fuss with a lot of color grading. One of the last main things with the differences between the Fuji X-S10 and the Sony E10 is the lens selections. Now, Sony has 1 million lenses, but not very many of them are specific to the APS-C line. So if you're going to be vlogging with this, it pretty much leaves you with 2 different lenses. You have the Sony 10-18 or the Tamron 11-20. With that 40% crop, that's really all you're going to be able to use if you're planning on vlogging with this thing. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, I'm going to stop right here and just to let you know that both of those wide-angle lenses cost more than the camera itself. And the kit lens that you can buy that's just $100 is not going to be acceptable if you're going to be wanting to vlog with it, because if you don't use the active stabilization, the footage is going to be too shaky, and if you use active image stabilization, the shot's going to be way too tight. So I wouldn't suggest the kit lens if you plan on doing any vlogging at all, and the wide angle lenses are pretty expensive. So on with the video. Of course, there's some features on the Sony ZV-E10 that are going to be really clutch as well. If you want a camera with the absolute best autofocus, I think that would be the best bet. While the Fuji does have good autofocus, it's just not as clutch as the Sony in any experience that I've ever had with either two cameras. Another cool thing that I've noticed that I like about the Sony E10 is that microphone, and I have one that I have on the ZV-E10, and it's really nice to have because a lot of times you don't want to have this huge setup, shotgun mic, all this crap hanging off your camera. You just want to kind of shoot and go, and having that microphone on top of it is pretty cool. And the wind muff does a good job of blocking out the wind noise. Another one of the things that Sony did really well on the Sony ZV-E10 is the mode selection button. I think that's going to be really nice for people to be able to switch between photo, video, and slow motion. Super easy like that. Like on the Fuji X-S10, it has a dial with a bunch of different custom settings, but you can't save video settings to that dial. So it kind of becomes a pain in the, not a pain, but it's a little bit more difficult to get the slow motion, to get to 60 frames per second, to get to 24 frames per second. And it becomes a little bit more difficult with the Fuji X-S10 than it would be just with the simple mode selector button that the the Sony E10 has. So that is a nice little feature. I hope you enjoyed the video. Just kind of a basic little look in comparison between the new Sony I'm just gonna call it the E10. Just a kind of a brief look at the difference between the Sony E10 and the Fuji X-S10. Like I say, when I saw that camera first be announced, I was pretty interested in it because it is Sony and it does have a lot of good features and stuff. And it would be nice to get all my lenses on one system. But to me, I'm perfectly happy with the X-S10. It's been a fabulous camera. To me, there's a lot of value in that extra $300 you just spent on the X-S10 over the Sony E10. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. If you have, please drop a like. See you on the next one.